Denim Couch Podcast. Ooh, oh, oh. Ooh, oh, oh.
The 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s with Steph with an F.
Hi guys, welcome to the Denim Couch Podcast, where we chill on this denim couch and talk about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. I'm Stephanie Tanner. Welcome. Hey guys, it's Stephanie Tanner with the Denim Couch Podcast. And this week's episode is with Winn. And Allie is just one of my most favorite people in this world. Allie saved my honeymoon. It's a long story, but she saved my honeymoon. And she is so giving, and so sweet. And it was funny because I contacted her and she made my day. Not only did she do this for me, but she completely made my day. And I think you'll see why when you listen to the interview. So she has some wonderful memories and some wonderful stories. And once again, they're different than the other guests. And that is so fun to me. I love to keep it entertaining and have just so many various stories from so many people. This is so fun to me. I love Allie so much. She just makes you feel good. I told a couple of my sisters who've also spent time with Allie throughout the years that I can't even believe how just having a phone call with Allie makes me feel so good. And yeah, that's what I've been thinking about this week. This week, I think for many of us has been a whirlwind of a lot of information, and it's been crazy, and we've just been taking a lot in from the news and media. But one thing that I just felt so at peace with, that Allie's the last question that I asked Allie, her advice was so amazing. It got me through the rest of my week. And she talks about just focusing on the little things in each day. And so she looks forward to certain things with her family, or movie nights, or, renting a movie, going to dinner with her kids, stuff like that. And I was able to look forward to getting ice cream at this fancy-ish ice cream place in Boise one day, and then actually finally getting to go to Barnes & Noble the next day. And those are little things that make my day and that make me happy and that I put my focus into. And if I focus on the little things, life is just going to be so much more bearable. All right, and with all of that, let's just dive in to Allie's interview. How common was your name in the 80s?
Allison itself, I don't remember it being very common. There was one other girl all through school. We went to school together from like third grade all the way through high school that had the name Allison. And that I can't think of anybody else that really even had my name.
What was life like in the 80s?
I remember we had things like big hair. Like people had big hair. And like big bangs and lots of hairspray and curling of the hair. And I remember pink. I seem to remember pink being a color that was commonly worn, although I didn't wear pink. But I remember like pink being a big thing, and like people coloring their hair odd colors like pink and purple and stuff, like famous people would. And like rock bands and stuff always had like extreme hairstyles. Even the dudes had long hair. I remember like people wanting big stereos, like boom boxes.
Oh yeah.
And everybody with the cool thing, you would see people on TV. The cool thing they would carry their boom boxes on their shoulder outside. We were pretty simple. I think boy band groups were big then. Like hard rock was big. I change up stuff. I'm not like but I listened to mostly country back then. Oh no, you know what? In the 80s, I did listen to more rock when it was like more. There's like rock and roll, not heavy metal.
Yeah.
There was like a distinction between the two. So not heavy metal, but rock and roll. I did when I was in an elementary. I can remember Footloose when the original Footloose came out. That was a big deal. The original Footloose movie was a big deal. I think I was in elementary when MC Hammer was a big deal. That might have been more towards junior high.
Well,
So like then
fun.
you had like your MC Hammer pants and stuff. I feel like styles in the 80s were just, the fads were always changing, just things that were cool. Kids were cool, things like that. I think we still have a station wagon, a yellow one with wood colored trim. We were always pretty cool, I'll tell you that. Yeah, we had a car that was gold colored car, and living in Louisiana, we'd have hurricanes, and so that ugly gold colored car with the vinyl seats, old ratty car that the teenagers drove, we had a hurricane come through, and a tree in the yard fell on the car. Yeah, the hurricane blew it down, and it fell on top of the car, and just smashed the windshield, smashed the hood, and even though it was the ugliest, rattiest car you ever saw, I can remember my teenage siblings, because I was at the younger end of the spectrum, being so sad because they actually got to drive something somewhere, and now that was gone. It was kind of, I almost remember, it was kind of like a little bit of a sparkly color too, like it was ugly.
What did you do for fun in the 80s?
So, we lived out of town a little bit. Like it was still like a neighborhood with houses and stuff, but each house, like it was out of town, it wasn't like an organized neighborhood. And each house had like anywhere from like 2 to 5 acres. And it was a little dead end street. And and behind my house was woods. And I don't know if people call it, but like wooded area. And in front of my house, one of our neighbors had a hayfield. So in front of my house was a hayfield, and behind my house was woods, and we had neighbors to the left and the right of us, but huge space in between, like huge yards, and
Dang.
And we even had like a ditch in between us and the neighbors on the right. But so I grew up, out of town a little bit, and I was a tomboy, so I spent all my time growing up in the yard. I had a lot of brothers, and I was in the yard all the time. We spent so much time in those woods playing guns, and we had trees that we'd cut in the South, you have some trees have vines that grow from the top of the tree down to the ground, and we cut the vines off the trees, and we'd use those vines to swing across the big creeks and the ditches in the back. We didn't call anything creek, it was all ditches. And so we'd swing across the ditches, and we'd avoid snakes, because it was, out of town, you ran into snakes all the time out in the woods. And we did have an Atari. I think that was, yes, because we didn't get Nintendo until the 90s. And so in the 80s, we had an Atari, and we had games called, my favorite game was called Frogger. And yeah, you'd have to cross the street, and then you'd have to get across the river, without getting smushed. And so we had an Atari, but, video games don't hold the same appeal as they do now. So yeah, you might play video games for a little while, and then you're like, come on, let's go. And then you'd be out in the yard for 3 or 4 hours. So, and my neighbor, because we lived in the South, my neighbor had a pool. And so we swam all the time, just in the water all the time, swimming. Trampolines were big still back then, trampolines all the time. I didn't have anything elaborate. I was just a normal kid that just lived outside. A little different when we go from like being here in town, just at my house with my kids, and then when my kids are at my parents, still live in the same house. And so when we get out there, it's kind of the same thing. My kids are they can't wait to go catch frogs and find snakes and crawfish in the ditches and in the yards, and bugs that you would never think of that exist and stuff like that. So they spend, just life in the yard all the time.
What were some popular activities?
My dad worked, my mom stayed home with the kids. My parents went out on a date every Friday night. During football season, go out on Saturday night instead of Friday night because I had siblings in high school, some older siblings in high school that played sports, Yeah, so basically kind of what they did was, they went to dinner and a movie all growing up. And my parents would come home and be like, oh, we saw this movie, it was so good. As soon as it comes, we would rent VCRs and we'd rent VHS tapes. And we'd also rent video games at video stores. Were big back then. And so, I can remember my parents would bring home, we rented a VCR. My aunt bought us a 25-inch TV, and we thought that was huge one year for Christmas. And now that's the smallest TV you can get. But back then, that was big. And we would rent a VCR, and they would bring home movies that they had seen before in the theaters. So, I can remember the first time I ever saw the movie The Natural. It's a classic good versus evil, dark versus light type movie. But my parents were big into date night. They go to dinner, they go to the movie every week. And outside of that, I think they just, there was 10 of us kids, so I think they just obviously enjoyed themselves, I would say. But, just did the parent thing. Yeah, my dad worked really, really hard. When I was little, he worked 2 to 3 jobs. Back then, interest rates were really, really high on homes and stuff like that. And so you had to have 20% down. So yeah, my dad worked to be able to buy the land that they live on still out of town and be able to build the house that they still live in. Yeah, so they, I think they were just typical people just trying to make it on their own.
Do you have any favorite memories from the 80s?
Some of my favorite memories, honestly, as a kid, was just football in my front yard with my brothers. I felt like anytime, because even though I was a girl, they didn't take it easy on me, and I feel like that anytime I actually did anything that was good, I was always a good little athlete, but I was in the middle of all these boys, and I just loved the feel of, oh, that was a great play, oh, touchdown, that high of just playing in the yard and being competitive. Probably just spending that time in the yard with my family, with my brothers. I loved it. I was actually in Louisiana in the summer 2 years ago. Mick and I were, and my brothers were in town. We were in town for one of my niece's weddings, and my brother and a couple of my brothers and I were in the front yard playing wiffle ball. Kind of, just like how it used to when we were kids, kind of, and having a home run marker and had the bases marked off. And my brother was like, "Hold on, guys, I got to get my kids out here." Because he's trying to tell him, what he used to be like when he grew up, playing in the yard with his siblings and stuff. And we had our kids, the kids that were with us, we had them out there with us in the yard. We were all just playing ball in the front yard. And at one point, I hit a window with the ball, and I just thought my life was over because that had happened when I was a kid, where we had broke a window in the front yard, and life was over. And so even as an adult, as a 40-year-old woman, I was like, no, Mom and Dad are going to kill me,
What made you happy back then?
As an elementary kid, I was a pretty easygoing kid. I think, you know what? When I was a little kid, every now and then we'd be in the car. They would only, every now and then we'd go, just one of us kids to the grocery store or somewhere with my mom. And whenever we were just by ourselves with just me and my mom, and I've done this with my own kids, but my mom would be checking out at the grocery store, and we'd be like, can I have a treat? My mom would say, okay, you can get a treat, but you have to eat it before we get home, and you can't tell the other kids because, I'm not getting them a treat. I'm just getting you a treat. And so it made me feel special that for that little bit of time, I was really, being one of 10, you don't have a lot of one-on-one moments of this is just for you. And to this if I have a kid with me, of course, back then to get home, it took 15 minutes because we lived out of town. So it was pretty easy to eat a treat on the way home. But just that feeling of, even though there was a lot of us, and I know my mom did that with all the siblings, because we talked about it as we've gotten older of, don't tell anybody.
Yeah.
So I feel like that even with limited resources, and they still did little things that made me feel special.
How would you compare your childhood or teenage years to today's kids?
Oh, I feel like we just lived outside more. I feel like we had less, and I don't know if that was my circumstances in particular, just because we had a large family that worked really, really hard. My mom didn't go back to school. She finished her degree when I was in junior high and started working when I was in high school.
Okay.
And I feel like that we had a lot less instant gratification. Whereas, like, if I needed a new pair of shoes when I was a kid, I had to wait like a month or two a lot of times. Like, okay, well, so-and-so's turn this month, and then so-and-so's next, but you can be the next. And I didn't think twice about it. Like, I tried to take care of the things that I had so that they would last longer. Like, I took more pride in those things, I feel like. So I guess just overall, I feel like a lot less material things. We had a lot less clothes, and we weren't on the phones all the time.
What brings you peace or calmness during hard times?
Honestly, I honestly focus on I try to focus on little things in life instead of big things. So, like, just overall, I try to find the joy in just everyday life. Like, let's say that there's a new movie on Amazon that just came out, and I will focus on, hey, we get to rent. It's Thursday night. There's no school tomorrow. We're gonna rent them. I can't wait to rent that movie and to sit down with my kids and watch that movie on Thursday night. Or, every other week, a kid and I do a little date night on Thursday. Oh, I can't wait to make date night, even if it's something simple like McDonald's. So it's just those little things, like so-and-so's got a game. I'm looking forward to that game. I try to really remember that life is not, we do get to have big, fun experiences, but that's not, life is made up of fun little things in life. And if you don't recognize the little joys in life, then you're never going to appreciate everyday stuff, if that makes any sense at all. Yeah, and I really focus a lot on just knowing the whole plan of salvation after this life. Am I scared of death? Not at all. And I never have as all growing up as a kid and everything. Death is something that never scared me because I always knew what was next. And the only thing that scares me is, who am I leaving behind? That's the only thing that's ever scared me is even now, having Jay there in the next life. Death is not a scary thing to me, even less scary than it ever was, but the joy of knowing that I still get this time with my kids. And that was some of the things that, Jay doesn't get this time with the kids to raise the kids, which he was an excellent dad. I still get my kids. And so just every day knowing that even when things are hard with kids, because kids struggle and to have to see them have their own little struggles, I try to appreciate the fact that I'm the one with them through these struggles. There's nobody else that gets to be with my kids during the struggles. I get to help them through that. And so it just kind of puts a reality check on when life is hard. Like right now, there's so much sadness and ugliness in our world. My own little world in my own little home with my own little family can still be good. And I think that if more people focused on their family and more people focused on teaching their kids from a little bitty age about choices, I think a lot of things would be better if people were just more equipped to make their choices. It's not the cure-all. It doesn't fix everything. But I think it does help in life to be able, look at your own life. You're allowed to make those poor choices, but because you got to make poor choices, you realize, but you do the good choices, and you see why those good choices are the ones you really want to make. Why those. So, no, I really feel like just within the walls of my own home and my own little world, if that can be peaceful and that is good, I'm good.
And I can't say enough good things about Allie, because she of course, has been such a positive influence in my life and just the best example of a mother and a person who cheers you up and makes you feel good. And she's just one of my favorites. So, and the 80s just are fun. The 80s are fun. That's all I can say. The music, the clothes, the whole era is something else. So with that, I'll talk to you next week. Bye. Wait. You can't miss the embarrassing story of the week. No. Okay. It's that time. It's Steph with an F's embarrassing story of the week. This week's embarrassing story. So I ordered some maternity clothes. I already have maternity clothes, but I ordered some third trimester, everything swelling, must be comfortable maternity clothes, if you know what I mean. And it was this matching set of shorts and a shirt, and I got 2 of them so that I could just wear these stretchy shorts, stretchy shirts in 2 different patterns for the entire summer. And I got them the other day, and it was so funny yet so sad, but more funny than really anything. And the shorts were too short. I still have 3 months to go. And I do swell more and I do expand more. And I was just busting out of these things. Granted, they weren't necessarily maternity clothes, but I thought if I got them big enough, it would work. And it didn't. And I thought it was really funny. If I had a picture, it would have been really embarrassing. So I'll just let you try and envision it. Good times. So here goes to wearing my husband's shirts for the rest of the summer. All right. I hope you guys have a wonderful week. Talk to you next week. Bye.
If you came here for mental health help, please go visit your doctor. If you're looking for some mental health tips, Dr. Daniel Amen is someone I follow. I love what he has to say and offer. I think his website is brainhealthassessment.com, and he just has some awesome checklist items that go over brain health or habits that you should be doing to have better brain health. I want to say there's like 5 to 10 items, and if you have those, if you're working on those habits and trying to improve them to improve your brain health, you'll also improve your happiness level, because brain health equals mental health. So keep your brains happy and healthy, and check out Dr. Daniel Amen. This is not sponsored. I just really like what he has to say, and I think it's really beneficial. I think it can help a lot of people. It's actually very matter of fact, kind of obvious, but yeah, we neglect so many of these habits daily. And I do feel like, if you're feeling unhappy, that may be one of the reasons you're unhappy, because you're neglecting your brain health, which is also your mental health. And yeah, trying to improve these habits could really help. So check him out. If you have any stories from the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, please get in contact with me. Let's chat. I want nothing more than to chat about the past. I want nothing more than to chat about the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. If you have any specific questions that I'm not asking that you would like to know about these eras while interviewing these people, please let me know. I would love some advice, and I would love your input. So what would you guys like to know?